So, hey everybody, welcome back to another very exciting episode of the Photoshop Training Hour. I am your host, Jesus Ramirez, and with me today is my good friend, Kristina Sherk. Hey Christina, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. I see some comments in the chat already, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Srinath is saying, love from India. Good to see you. I'm streaming from the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area in San Ramon, California. Where are you streaming from, Christina?
We are here in Rockville, Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C.
Awesome, awesome. And I think that's the last place I saw you in person. We were together at a conference in Washington, D.C. a couple months ago.
Yes, we were Creative Pro.
That's right. Now, before we start, I just want to quickly thank our sponsors, MSI, for sponsoring today's video. We'll talk a little bit more about MSI in a moment. But before we get to that, I want to talk to Christina and figure out what we're going to learn today. She's a fantastic photo retoucher. She's been doing it for about 15 years, if I'm not mistaken, has taught millions of people how to retouch and use Photoshop. She's a fantastic instructor. So I'm very excited to see what her three tips are for today's session.
Yes, well, they are going to be good ones, and I think everybody watching is going to benefit in some way, whether you are a beginner or whether you are intermediate or advanced. I know that Jesus particularly has given you guys some really great fundamentals and groundwork to build upon, and I'm just going to teach from a different voice, a different kind of avenue. I'm not very super technical. I don't use a lot of the technical terms, but I do talk about the Band-Aid thingy and this check mark over here and that kind of thing. So it's just going to be a little bit of a different teaching method, but we are going to have some fun today.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that because you don't have to necessarily know what the name of every tool is and the science behind it. As long as you understand how the tool works and how you can apply it to your workflow, that's all you really need. So you don't have to know the name of the whatever tool. It could just be the little hand tool or whatever you want to call it, the little finger tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to let you know that we have people watching from all over the world: India, Florida, Romania, Czech Republic, Kentucky, USA, and I'm putting as many of the people commenting on the chat. Sorry I can't do everyone. There's so many comments coming in from YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of that good stuff. So I apologize if I cannot get your comment in the chat. But Christina, if you're ready, we can get started and I can start sharing your screen. I know you have a lot to share. We have about an hour and you have a lot of wonderful tips and tricks. It's going to be a lot more than three. I think you have like three general topics, but within that giant topic, there's a bunch of little tips and tricks that I'm sure you all will love. So
yes,
is it okay
definitely.
to share your screen now?
Sure, awesome. Absolutely.
So here we are. Okay. We're going to share your screen and there we are.
All right, perfect. So the first thing that we are going to talk about today is going to be incorporating actions into your workflow. So what exactly are actions? They are a series of recorded steps that you basically train Photoshop to do for you. Now, these can be very rudimentary. They can be something as simple as add a mask to a layer, invert that mask from white to black, and then activate my brush tool and make sure that my foreground color is on white. That, for example, would be an easy action that could be recorded for you. But even in that easy action, I just hypothetically listed off, add a mask to a layer, invert that mask, activate a certain tool, and then make sure that that tool is set to the right color. So that's, instead of 4 different steps that you would have to do in an easy action, all you have to do is press one button and that action can be made for you. So that is, even in its tiniest little infancy stage of beginner actions, that is still very, very useful in terms of how it can help you with productivity. Is everybody kind of, with me on that? Does everybody kind of understand that we're going to be talking about actions and that kind of thing?
Yeah, let us know in the chat if you have any questions about actions. I know that you're going to go into the process in a few moments, but if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat and we'll be happy to answer them for you.
Perfect. Yes. So we're going to talk about a really easy action today that we can all make and we can all do. the first action that we're going to create is an action that's going to incorporate some of the new neural filters that have been rolled out into Photoshop. And those neural filters actually activate the AI technology of Adobe Sensei. And it allows you to really get fantastic results in a fraction of the time that it used to take. So the first action that we're going to make is actually a skin smoothing action, which is going to incorporate in the skin smoothing neural filter. So that's the first one we're going to do. But then what I want to do after I show you guys how to do that is I'm going to show you an action that I've created that is called my full portrait workflow. And it's got over 250 steps written into that action. So if you are a beginner action user, this is going to be great to show, oh, I can do this. I can follow along step by step, and I can make sure that I can create the same action, beginner action that she did. But then at the end of today's class, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a link to download my full portrait workflow action, which has, like I said, 250 steps in it. And all you have to do is click one button. So we're going to start easy, and then we're going to go super advanced really, really fast.
Sounds
the best
great.
thing I can say. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start in our actions window. And if you're not seeing your actions window or it's not visible for any reason like that, you can always come up to your window menu and choose actions. And that's how you know that the window is up, because it has that check mark next to it. Okay. So we know that our actions palette is available. It's visible. We're happy. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. So tell me if you guys can see this. Okay. I've got my actions here, and I'm going to choose to start with a new action. And so this is pretty universal as the new symbol or the new icon for Photoshop. So we'll go ahead and click that. And then it's going to give us some suggestions here. Can everybody see me zoomed in? Just making sure that everybody can see the zoomed in screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, great. So this is going to be our neural skin smoothing, neural skin smoothing. Okay, that's fine. We're going to save this into our default actions folder because that's the one that we're all going to have. And then one of the other very valuable things about actions is that you can apply a hotkey on your keyboard or a hotkey combination to have these actions run immediately for you. So you don't have to find your actions palette. You don't have to scroll through all of that tiny text of your actions to find the one that you're looking to create. If you have an action that you use all the stinking time, you need to add a hotkey to it. So for that, what we're going to do is we are going to choose F3, and we are going to activate Shift. So anytime I'm on my keyboard and I hit Shift plus F3, this action is going to run for me. Okay. Mm-hmm. Super powerful. The other thing is each one of these function keys has the ability to house 4 different actions. So you can have just the F3, you can have the F3 plus Shift, you can have the F3 plus Command or Control, or you can have them both checked. So each one of these function keys has the capacity to hold 4 different actions. Now, I know, and everybody here knows, there's no way your brain's going to remember all of those and which ones go on which function key. So, you know, once you get all of your actions that you use every day and you start chugging and really being productive, that's when you write a list, you print out a list in little teeny tiny text, and you have it next to your computer screen, if you will. You can also see which actions have a hotkey, and you can see that over here in the right. See that? Save as a PNG. I have an action for save as PNG, and it's F3 plus Command. All right, so you can see that over there in the actions palette as well. All right, so we're going to hit record, and everything that you do after hitting record is going to be notated by Photoshop so that they can create the same thing again for you. So we're going to go ahead and hit record. And the first thing that I want to do is select my background layer. And so because it's the only layer in there, I'm going to select my background layer by creating a layer first, then selecting my background layer. Now, let's go ahead and just select layer. Let's go ahead and just hit our background, and we're going to duplicate our background. So we're going to hit Command or Control plus J to duplicate our background. And then one of the most important things in an action creation is going to be to name your layers. So we're going to double click background copy, and we're going to call this skin. All right. And we'll call this layer that we created, let's just call this delete me. This is because we started with a flat layer. I just really wanted to make sure that this command, select layer background, is actually within my layer steps, because I think that that's important. All right, let's select our layer skin. And now we're going to run our super AI, super smart filter from our neural filters called skin smoothing. So we're going to come up to our filter menu. We're going to choose neural filters from our drop down. And this is a neural filter that you will need to make sure you download prior to actually recording your action. The skin smoothing filter has to be downloaded from the cloud first. So that should be done not in the action creation. So we're going to go ahead and turn on our skin smoothing filter. And you can see over here that Photoshop has indeed recognized a face in your image. And so this is powered by Adobe Sensei, but I'm pretty sure that there's a secondary face detection run by Mona. I want to say it's Mona, and it's what they initially were using for face-aware liquify. But that's me geeking out about Photoshop and the back-end engine. So just don't listen to me. Just put your la 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 earmuffs on. Okay, so let's go ahead and change our settings. We're going to take our blur down significantly because I think by default this is a little heavy-handed. So what are my settings that I have for my blur? So my blur is set to 23 and my smoothness is set to -22. Okay, so I'm happy with those. And then if we come down here at the bottom, it says, well, how would you like to output these changes? So I want to choose the current layer because initially in our action creation, we actually created the skin smoothing layer already. So now we can go ahead and press OK for our action. That's going to bring it back, and it will have now updated our skin layer. So just in an effort to make sure that I always teach how to preserve skin texture and detail, we're going to go through a process that's going to allow you to isolate the skin texture from the background underlying layer and put it back on top of the skin. So we're going to select our background layer again, and we're going to duplicate our background layer again, hitting Command or Control plus J. We're going to name this layer skin texture. And then what I want to do is I want to relocate this layer so that it's above our skin smoothing, our skin layer. Okay. Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, you're going to hold down Command or Control plus the bracket keys on your keyboard, and that's going to relocate your layers. Now, the reason I don't like doing dragging and dropping too much during action creation is because it can cause Photoshop to get tripped up. Okay. Photoshop is trying to record every single step that you do. So anything freehand, anything where you're painting in or using your brain to do that, all of that stuff needs to be devoted to you after the action has been created. None of that stuff should be incorporated into the action because in the short term, it can just screw things up. Okay, so with our skin texture layer selected, we're going to go up to filter. We're going to choose other, and we're going to choose high pass. At this point, we want to look for a high pass radius that's going to accentuate the detail in the pore structure the best. So you may think, well, I want a lot of pore detail. So let me go ahead and do a massive radius on these pixels. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Just learn from me. That's not the thing that you want to do, even though I know we all want skin detail and pore structure to still be intact whenever we're working on skin. So I think that a good radius would be around 2.6 for this image. So I'll go ahead and press OK. And then what we're going to do to our skin texture layer is change the blend mode. So we'll change the blend mode from normal to soft light. And okay, so I'm going to stop now. Actually, before stopping, I'm going to select my delete me layer. And I'm just going to click and drag and drop it to the trash. Now I'm going to hit stop on my action. And I want to just see what we've created. So there's our before and our after. So you can see we still have all of our pore structure, but the color underneath of the skin has definitely been evened out. Can you guys see that?
Looks great.
All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and decrease the visibility of my skin texture down to 50% for that layer. And now if I come in here, we still have our lovely pores, but if we go on and off, we can see that the skin color has been softened significantly. Mm-hmm. All right, so here's the moment of truth, right? The moment of truth is always running your action while you're teaching actions, while you're trying to explain what they do, while still completely focusing on creating the action properly so that it doesn't error out. Okay, this is the problem of teaching actions and creating actions at the same time. Mm-hmm. I kind of tell people when you're creating your actions, you have to turn off every distraction and intentionally click every single place that you're clicking in your Photoshop, mm-hmm. because it's important to make sure that nothing gets screwed up in the process of creating the action.
And so troubleshooting an action is not fun.
It is not fun. Yes, troubleshooting an action. Where did that go wrong? Why am I getting this error message? Why is it saying it's not able to select this thing? It's very frustrating. I actually, in the action packs that I sell, funny story, in the action packs that I sell, I have a red labeled action above at the top of every single action pack that says, stop, play me first. And it's just little pop-up after pop-up saying, this can screw up an action. This can screw up an action. If you have a bunch of layers and you haven't named all of them, that can screw up an action. Because mm-hmm. if an action says select layer 1, then, and you already have a layer 1 that you had created previously, it's going to totally make the action not work, right? So name your layers, especially when you're creating actions. So anyway, definitely. Let's see. So I'm going to do Shift plus Function plus F3. And let's see if my action runs. There we go.
Hey.
Can you guys see what was just created down here? Okay, I did it. Whew.
It worked.
Yes, okay. Yay, it worked. It worked. So there is a very rudimentary action, but it's really going to be powerful for you because it is incorporating in those neural filters that are backed
Mm-hmm.
up by Adobe Sensei, which is their AI engine. So it's very smart. At this point, with the neural skin smoothing filter, one frustration that I have with it is it doesn't apply to all the skin. It's only going to apply to the skin on the face.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that I would love to be changed or updated. I've put in my little request. We'll see if they listen. But yeah. So I know that probably everybody has run into problems before with actions. So if we have any questions, if anybody has questions or anything that they want to ask me, I would be more than happy to answer any action questions. If not, we're going to just move on to my big action. And this is going to be the first tip. The first tip is using actions wherever possible in your workflow to speed up the process. So any of the grunt work that you do, creating a layer, putting something into a folder, adding a watermark, any of that kind of stuff, that needs to be automated for you. And you are the one that knows that kind of stuff. So do we have any questions on actions?
It looks like there's no questions in the chat regarding actions, but if there are, please let us know and we can definitely answer your questions. We just have a nice thumbs up. So I guess you must have done a good job on demonstrating how actions work. So
okay,
yeah.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to move on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select my skin layer and my skin texture layer from my layers palette. I'm just going to click and drag them to the trash. Now it's time to talk about my full portrait workflow action that I have that I'm going to be giving to you guys. So for all of my photographers out there that photograph people, this is going to be a great, easy workflow for you to just run. Mm-hmm. And then everything is done for you. Like I said, it's 250 steps. The other thing that you guys need to think about and think about actions in a different way or in a different capacity is that, I know personally that I have very frequently been retouching an image and I look up at the clock and 45 minutes has gone by and I'm just thinking, mm-hmm. Where did that time go? Right? We've all been there. So what an action can also do is it can give you a retouching outline to go through, especially if you're doing big volume. Mm-hmm. It's going to give you that outline so that you don't have, so that once all of those things are addressed, all of those things are masked in, you can move on to the next image, which is very powerful. If you, Jesus, if you want me to close my window, I can.
Okay. I think you're fine. Yeah. If anybody is, I'm not bothered by it. There's a few questions in the chat though regarding actions. So Colin asks, can you explain how to record an action or part of it? I think that was basically what the first part of the stream was, how to record an action. But maybe you can talk a little bit about how to add to an action. So maybe you ran the action and then you realize, I need to add something to it. Do you want to? Sure.
Perfect. Yep. Okay, so let's go back to that action that we just made, okay? So we're going to start with our neural skin smoothing. Now, remember that initially when I created the action, I did not decrease the skin texture down to 50%. That step was not recorded. So what we can do is we're going to go ahead and run the action like we did, Shift plus Function plus F3, and that's going to run. And okay, good. We have our skin texture and our skin layers that were created. Now, I'm going to zoom over here for a moment so we can see. So let's say that we want to add in, we've run this action 5 or 10 times, and we say, every time I'm running this action, I'm going in, I'm selecting the skin texture layer, and I'm decreasing the opacity from 100% to 50%, okay? So let's add that into the action. So in our neural skin smoothing action, we're going to select the bottom step, okay? The last step of the action. We're gonna go back to our record icon right here, and we're gonna hit record. Now this is gonna pick up where we left off. So now, if you watch here, I'm going to select the skin texture layer, and you'll see a command that comes up. Select skin texture. Do you see that? Select layer skin texture. So now that's been selected. So I can come to the opacity of that layer, and I can decrease it to 50%. And that step has also been recorded into my action. And so now I can go ahead and stop my action. And now moving forward, anytime I run this action again, it's only going to give me 50% of that added skin texture on top. So let's just go ahead and delete our skin smoothing. We will select the topmost name of this layer, of this action, not layer, action, and we're going to press play. Okay. This is another way you can play an action if you don't remember what the hotkey was. Okay, so it has created our action, but if we zoom in here, you can see that our skin texture now is back at 50%. So now the layer, if we look at this last step, set current layer to layer, I don't know what that makes, it doesn't make any sense, but opacity 50%. So this is the last step that we added in. Now, if there's anything that you want to delete from an action, you can also do that. The way you would do that is to, I've got select layer background in here twice. So what I could do is I could take select layer background, and I could just click and drag this to the trash can of my actions palette. And then that's gone. That's just cleaning up your layer and making sure that it's just a little bit cleaner than it once was. Okay, so does that kind
Awesome.
of, yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
you
adding
did
and
a good.
editing.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Christina,
Cool.
for interrupting, but there's a few more questions that I want to get to regarding actions.
Yeah.
This one is not a specific question to actions, but what shortcut key you use for running the function? Please repeat it. Well, it's not a shortcut key that comes built into Photoshop. It's a shortcut key that you, Christina, assigned to it, correct?
Correct. Yes. So during that new action, in this new action dialog box, you have the option to assign a function key to the action when you're making it.
Right. Another question. This is an interesting one for you. May I ask, why are you usually going with water effects?
Why am I usually going with water effects? I'm actually under the water for some of my work. I wonder if that's what he's talking about.
I
Some
think
of my
that's what they're
underwater
talking
work.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not an effect. It's actually just me making my life harder than it has to be for some silly reason.
Here's a really good question by Lenny. What's the difference between an action and a preset?
Oh, that's a good one. So actions are going to be mainly for Photoshop, and presets are, well, I guess they're both. You could do anything of a preset. A preset is a specific set of values within a tool, right? Or a specific set of slider values that are immediately applicable to an image. And an action is a way of recording your movements and allowing Photoshop to record that in memory and then applying it in the future. So like selecting subject. Now, up until a couple of weeks ago, that wasn't going to be available to create in presets because you never had that ability. But since Lightroom and Lightroom Classic have integrated in that select subject command, now we can. That's a bad example because now it is possible. But actions can do a bunch more than presets can do. Because you're able to select different looks, select different brightness, darkness values of your image and apply different effects to those. That's just one way. And you can't really do that with presets in Lightroom per se.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in reality, they're the same thing, right? Like having pre-established settings on a tool, presets generally, I mean, there are tool presets and presets for other things, but usually when people talk about presets, they're talking about, as you were saying, Lightroom presets. And with those, you're just basically pre-setting where the slider is in any
Oh, I
given
love that.
command. So you're
Yeah.
presetting the slider somewhere. With an action, you're presetting more than just one set of more than you can apply, for example, the camera raw filter, which will keep basically everything that Lightroom would. But you could also record an action with anything inside of Photoshop, so it is more powerful. But if it helps, you can also think about it as presets that you can just stack on top of each other. That's the way I would
Yeah.
describe it. But yeah, the simplest way to
Yeah.
think of a preset is a preset location for a slider.
Oh,
Usually
I
in
love. Yeah.
in Lightroom. Although they are like, brush presets and like curves presets and all these kind of
I
things, but
know.
generally speaking, people talk about presets when they're talking about Lightroom.
Yes. And
Awesome.
now Lightroom presets are getting so much more
Mm-hmm.
powerful. Yeah, it's just everything's
Yeah.
changing right now, I feel like.
One of the questions in the chat is, what is the best Photoshop version? Generally speaking, whatever the latest one there is at the moment. Generally
Yes.
speaking.
Yes, definitely.
One other question regarding actions: can you also reorder within an action? The answer is yes. You can just drag and step up and down just like you can with the layers panel.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect. Okay, so
Cool.
let's move on. I'm going to move on to my big monster action. How many people do we have with us today?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
We're streaming among several different platforms, so I'm not really sure. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm glad we have a
Cool.
lot of people watching. Actually, before
Yeah.
you get to that, let me switch over into my screen because I do have to talk about our sponsors. As you guys know, our
Yes.
sponsors for the Photoshop Training Hour is MSI Computers, link in the description. And I'm going to switch over into my screen. I just want to let you guys know that MSI is running a summer deal, link in the description. So if you're looking for a new laptop, make sure that you come in and check it out. I am currently using the Creator Z16 laptop, which is this one right here. It's a fantastic laptop. I've been using it. I've been using a version of the Creator Z series for about maybe 2 years now. I'm using the latest one at the moment, Creator Z16P. Besides being a very powerful computer and having a really powerful video card, it also comes with a touchscreen display and the MSI pen that allows you to retouch directly on screen, which is fantastic. Also, it comes with a 16:10 aspect ratio, so as you can see from the animation, it actually gives you a little bit more room than most laptops at the bottom, so that you have more room for your layers panels and things like that. In this case, they're using Adobe After Effects to showcase the extra room that you get, but the same thing will be true with Photoshop, Lightroom, and things like that. It has great color accuracy. All laptops are calibrated at factory. They're Calman certified, so it gets fantastic color representation. So make sure that you come in and check out the Creator Z16 laptop. Again, links in the description. But I will start by looking at the summer sales from MSI. So thank you so much, MSI, for sponsoring today's video. And I'm going to jump
Cool.
right back to the screen and share your screen, Christina. And
Yeah,
there we are.
absolutely. Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're ready to move on. So I've got my my Shark Pixel. Let's see, this full retouch workflow. This is the action. You guys are going to be getting this action as well as some other free items that I'm going to be giving you today. But I'm going to go ahead and play this action.
Let's talk a little bit about that now. That way people can have some time to download it. So
Sure.
Is it the sharkpixel.com/thanks where they can get this action?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody. So if you want to, if you want to download the actions that Christina's sharing with us today, make sure that you go into sharkpixel.com/thanks, and you can download what, Christina?
So it's going to be this portrait full retouch workflow. And then it's also a beauty brush starter pack, which I'll get into in my next tip. But you can go ahead and start your download. There will be 2 email. If you're a new customer to Shark Pixel, there will be 2 emails. Check
Mhm.
your spam. And one will be like saying welcome, and then it'll have your temporary password. And then the other one will be that you have been granted access to the free item and that you can log in and get it. So make sure that you're looking for 2 emails once you put in your information.
Yeah, so go there now, sharkpixel.com/thanks. And also, if you're away from the stream, make sure that you subscribe to Christina's YouTube channel, since she is also posting retouching tutorials on YouTube, and they're all free. They're awesome, so make sure you check those out.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. So let's get back into it. So the big action, we're gonna work on the big action now, right?
We are, yes. So I'm gonna go ahead and run this action. It does take a minute, so if there's a question or two,
there are some questions. So one of the questions in the chat, and I'm assuming that this is because the person is in a different country. Sometimes one needs brackets to key in actions. If you have a keyboard that does not include brackets key, is there any other way to insert a bracket? I'm not really sure.
There is a layer command for move layer up or move layer down.
Yeah, and what I would recommend is just creating your own custom keyboard shortcut. For that, I believe you should be able to do that. I'm pretty sure you should be able to do that. So that's how I would go about tackling that situation. And yeah, most of the keyboard shortcuts that we talk about are based in North American keyboards because we live in North America. And I do understand that some keyboard shortcuts don't apply to all versions of Photoshop everywhere in the world, unfortunately. Ryan is saying that he is going to be building a lot of actions now. That's fantastic.
Yes, that means you're going to be saving time.
Yes. Ace is asking, can the actions be used for copy and paste? I assume. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm not really sure what that.
Yeah, so clarify in case we don't understand your question properly, Ace, but I assume that you mean that if you can create an action to copy and paste something. So for example, I assume this is what you meant. If you select something, can there be an action that you just do a quick keyboard shortcut that copies and pastes those pixels? I guess the answer is yeah. And if that's what you're looking for, then you don't even need to create an action. There's already a keyboard shortcut for that. When you make a selection, you can press Control-J and it'll do just that, copy and paste. Maybe the other way I can interpret this question is if you can copy an action and paste it. You can definitely duplicate actions.
Yeah, you can definitely duplicate it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what you meant, but I hope that we answer your questions. We got my good friend Micah Burke in the chat. Mike is going to be an Adobe Max speaker this year for the first time, just like my good friend Christina here in the chat with me, and myself will be in LA in October. So make sure that if you can make it out to LA, you come to Adobe Max, where we'll be teaching.
But it's also going to be virtual.
And it's also going to be virtual. That's right. That's right. That's right. But if you want to hang out with us, you have to come to LA.
Yes, that's true. You do have to come to LA to hang out with us.
Awesome.
Okay, so the action has finished, and what I try to do is whenever I create an action, I try and give some helpful hints to people for that action to tell them, what steps to do next. So we'll go ahead and press continue. So what this action has done, if we come and zoom in down here, is it has created a ton of adjustment layers. And so for example, what it's done first is we've gone ahead and we've blurred the skin. And then I did the same technique that I just did previously, isolating the skin texture from the background layer and slapping it back up on top of the skin blur layer. I also have a layer that can easily be turned off or on for fixing redness in the skin. And then what the action has done is it has actually gone in, it's found the skin tones, and it has created a layer mask to only show this blurring effect over the skin. So if I hold down Option or Alt and I click on the mask icon, you can see the mask that was selected, okay, or automatically made for you. All right, so that's pretty good. It's a bit fuzzy. I might just bring in this, if I wanted to, I could use my levels adjustment to polarize it and really make it crunchy along those edges and very sharp. But I'm not going to do that right now. But so basically that's all done for you. So the skin smoothing, do you guys see that? You want me to zoom in here? So this skin smoothing is done for you automatically within the action. Okay. So it's taking away a little bit too much redness from her skin. So I'm going to select that redness layer and bring the opacity down, maybe 50%. Okay. Now what's next? So all of that was done for you within the action. You didn't even have to paint in the skin smoothing over that area. But now we have this layer for blemishes. This layer is dedicated to you. Because the skin smoothing has already been done, it's now your objective and your responsibility to go in and get rid of any major blemishes that the skin smoothing didn't necessarily address or didn't catch. You can also go in, I forgot to say that you can go into the skin blur, and the action is actually set by default to an opacity of 50%, this skin blur. So if you want it blurrier, pull it up. If you want it less blurry, pull it down. Okay. So that's just exactly how it works. So then we have our blemishes layer. And so you can see up here on her forehead, I might want to go through and get rid of some of those. So I'll do that using my spot healing brush tool. And I want to make sure that a couple different settings are set to this brush, because I think there are some smart settings that really help this brush react the best it possibly can. I usually like a mode of replace. I think it's kind of like your clone stamp and your healing brush had a baby. That's how I like to describe it. The other thing is you do want to make sure that content aware is activated. Okay. At this point, we can go in. Where did my, every time I like swipe my finger along my mouse, my like whole image zooms way out. I got to fix that. Okay. So now I can come in here and I can go over these areas, and I can go through and get rid of them little by little. And the nice thing is, because we're using that AI technology, I'm able to get really, really good results. Now, for example, if there's something that we don't necessarily want to remove altogether, but we do want to just remove it slightly, if you do, if you remove an area just like that and then hit Shift, Command or Control plus F, what that will do is it'll bring up your fade dialog box, which will fade the last stroke that you made. And this is true for all brush-based tools, okay? So the brush-based tools have this ability. Now remember that this is not for the entire layer's opacity. This is just uniquely dedicated to the last stroke that was made. All right, so that's Shift, Command or Control plus F to fade that out.
That's a good one to remember. Make sure you commit that to memory.
Yes, it will come in very handy. All right, so just going over some of these little areas, these little hairs here, crosshairs. This is a great tool with these settings. This is a really great tool for crosshairs to remove, for example. You can see how it's recreating those hairs underneath it. And honestly, guys, I think that not enough people really pay attention to the settings that are applied to the tools that we use on a daily basis. Everything's like, oh, I expect that this is just going to work perfectly. Well, do you have the right settings applied to it? No, of course not. I don't know what a setting is. So, it is important to kind of understand, wow, that's interesting. It's kind of important to understand those things. Okay, so we're going to move on now. So we did our blemish work. That's what's in the layer. Now we have this section for eye whites. Now you can see there's a lot that I've applied to the eye whites, but it's all hidden behind a black mask for eye whites layer. So I softened the eye whites by doing an inverted high pass, and then I made some color adjustments to the eye whites as well. Color, contrast, adding some blues, removing some yellows. So all of that is housed within this eye whites folder. So once that eye whites folder is selected and you've got your mask, you can come in, and we can use a regular soft round brush we'll make sure that we are painting on white, painting using white. And we can come into these eye whites. And start to soften them away.
Nice.
So what you're doing here is you're really like, you're just painting in the masks once. And until Photoshop can give me the command, select eyes, select lashes, select iris, I can't make this any smarter than it currently is right now.
Mm-hmm.
The next two folders that I have are, I wanted this action to be universal across the board. So I have two folders here for eye color. You can see that there's one for blue-green iris, which is going to accentuate blue or green irises. And then there's another for brown or hazel irises. So this is the one that I'm going to use for this image, right? Because she's got brown eyes. So I can go ahead and come in here, again, painting with white. Let's do 20% opacity with my brush. And I'm just going to softly accentuate that eye color. And now, there's some sharpening that's happening within this folder. There's some increased saturation, increased color overlay, that kind of thing. So there's our before and our after just for the eye, for the iris. I was a little sloppy on my mask over here, but that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have, this is so weird. This is a processor thing. Can you guys see that?
Oh, the shift of skin tone?
The red? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so weird. Maybe it's,
Zoom?
I don't know. Maybe I'd have to do something with the processor streaming. I don't know, but that's weird.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go to our blush folder now, and we're going to use a brush. We'll use 10% opacity, and we'll just come in here and add a little bit of blush to the cheeks, maybe to the lips a little bit as well. Now we've got our highlight and our contour our highlight and our contour adjustment layers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So for our highlights one, we'll come in, we'll use 10% opacity, and we'll really bring the flow down just a little bit so that it doesn't go too far. And we're just going to paint in some of those highlight areas to accentuate that formality, that formation.
Nice.
Okay?
And I assume knowing how to do makeup really helps in this process.
It does, but you don't have to. What I always suggest for my non-wearing portrait
makeup
photographers,
demographic.
yes, is to really sit down with your makeup artist when you hire one and ask them why they're doing certain things. Because
good tip.
Everything is done for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can understand what the makeup artist is trying to do, what the makeup artist sees that they're trying to fix,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to help you see that in your eyes, through your eyes, and see how I could fix that in camera instead, or in Photoshop instead.
Definitely. Right? There's two questions in the chat, one related and one unrelated. So I want to get to both. First, the related question: where did Kristina learn her process?
That's so funny. I was a digital art major, so I had the opportunity to study Photoshop full time for 4 years in college, and I know not a lot of people have that luxury. And I didn't want to be a photography major because it was film based at the time that I was there. And so I really wanted to learn photography, but I learned it backwards. So for all the photographers out there who picked up a camera first, I picked up Photoshop first, and then figured out, and then made all the mistakes in camera that you're taught not to, and then had to figure out how to teach them how to fix them in Photoshop. I actually have a class called 10 mistakes beginner photographers make and how to fix them in Photoshop. So that's how I got my start.
Awesome. I also took just one Photoshop class in college, and I got a C. And for those of you who are not in the US, that's barely a passing grade. So yeah, that was the extent of my Photoshop education.
Wow.
And
Wow.
the other the other question we have, AG asked a little bit ago, and I see that Micah already answered, but I guess I'll answer it just in case other people have the same question. The question was actually this one here. I need to make a realistic drop shadow action in case I copy the drop shadow layer and paste it 50 times and more every layer to the bottom and right. Anyway, to make this action an action do this, Micah had a great suggestion in the chat, which you can use the repeat transformation keyboard shortcut, which is Control Alt Shift T on Windows, Command Option Shift T on the Mac. And basically, what that keyboard shortcut is, it repeats your last transformation. So maybe you can just move, as Micah suggested, 1 pixel adjustments on the shadow, and then use the keyboard shortcut for Photoshop to repeat that, and that's how you would create that shadow. So you don't necessarily have to use an action, but you can definitely record these steps and have an action made as well. So that's how you.
I would have to look into if you can add copy and paste layer style as option commands, as commands within an action.
Micah said, "LOL, Jesus nearly failed Photoshop." Now,
the same thing, and then I didn't want to say it.
I need to expand on this. So I don't want to say that I was a bad student, so I'll say that. But I wasn't bad at Photoshop. I was just a bad student. So
Okay.
I hardly showed up to class, and I did everything last minute because I knew I could get away with it, because I was like, yeah, I can do this in an hour. I don't need a week to do this. And because of that, my grades suffer.
Okay.
The point is, you don't need good grades, but stay in school, kids.
Yes. Stay in school.
We have a very good question here by Colin. Colin Ellis is asking, will you create a droplet for your favorite actions, making them portable, or can I upload it to the Adobe Cloud Library?
Oh, I'm going to let you take that one. I don't use droplets.
So you can definitely create droplets for your favorite actions if you like. A droplet basically is like a .exe file on Windows. I don't know if somebody who uses a Mac will tell me if it has a different file extension, but it's an executable file type that you can just drag like a photo or a folder of photos into in order to just run whatever action the droplet was meant to run. Like, you create a droplet and you tell it what action to run. So that's what a droplet does. As far as I understand, you cannot upload a droplet into the Creative Cloud. So yeah, you can definitely take a droplet with you, like on a flash drive, or put it in like your Dropbox or something. But that would be a good request. Maybe I'll write that down and let Adobe know. That might be interesting if you could just have droplets. Yeah, scripts will be another thing. But again, you can't upload a script to the Creative Cloud. I guess you can, but it won't show up like in your libraries panel. So I guess that's really what the problem would be. But yeah, very, very good question, Colin. Colin, let us know what you use droplets for. I don't really do a lot of batch processing, so I rarely use droplets, but they're great if you're like an event photographer and you just have an action that will get you the results that you want on hundreds or thousands of photos.
Yeah.
Cool. We have a comment by AG. Hope you guys make more videos together again. Oh, I hope we do as well. Christina's a very good friend of mine. And actually, you know what, Christina? I'm going to share that photo that I was showing you earlier. So this is nuts. Everybody, look, I want to hear everybody's comments on this. Let me just switch over to my screen, because this is nuts. So I met Christina at a Photoshop World when she was a speaker, and I was just there hanging out, just meeting people. And we have a picture of the day that we met. But the interesting thing about that is that, as you can, and let me get rid of the comment here. As you can see, that happened on Tuesday, July 19th, 2016. That was today, like 6 years ago. Isn't that insane?
That's
and we
crazy.
didn't plan it or anything. This morning when we were getting ready for the stream, we realized that was that was when we met. And there she is with her shark fin, and there I am 6 years ago at Photoshop World. This must have been Las Vegas, I would assume, maybe Orlando.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But yeah, that's when we met. And then eventually we were speakers together at Photoshop World. And we were the only two nerds wearing our name tags in this whole event, which is why we took that picture. And then we've spoken at a lot of events, including WPPI. And this is our WPPI crew. Christina, myself, Lisa Carney, Aaron Nays, Jared. So we've
I
hung out
learned so much from you that day.
a
Yeah.
lot since then. But it's insane that we met literally 6 years ago today, and we planned the stream together for the first time, basically in the same day without even realizing it. So that's pretty crazy.
It's like it was meant to be.
It was definitely meant to be. Awesome. Yeah. So you
Cool.
have the screen again, Christina.
Okay. The last section that I have is just lip color, a little bit of additional color and a little bit of lip saturation. I'm going to invert this mask from black to white momentarily so that you guys can see the color shift. So maybe that's what was playing with my Zoom issue earlier, was it was like peeking through for some reason. So with that, I'm going to come in here. And I'm just going to paint the same way. I'll revert my flow to 100 and then just paint in a little bit of color on the lips. And so even though I really spoke to you and took it slow throughout this process, we were able to get, let's see, I'm going to go back to my background, hold down Option or Alt to click on that eyeball. So this is the difference that we've been able to create using this action. This is the power of action. So you can imagine, I would say I could do this in 90 seconds. So I could turn a very long retouching job into something that takes me a fraction of the time. And the reason why is because I'm allowing Photoshop to do the grunt work for me. I'm allowing Photoshop to make all the layers, to apply all the blurring and the sharpening and the skin smoothing. I'm even allowing Photoshop to go in and make the mask dedicated to skin tones. This is what I want you guys to take away from today's session, is that it's incredibly powerful if you devote the time to learning how actions work, to making them yourself. You can purchase actions online. I've got a huge set of beauty actions, but you can also make them yourself. But it's going to really, really allow you to work much smarter and not harder and take a fraction of the time and still get great results.
And where can people find those actions that you have on your website?
It's on sharkpixel.com. Yeah. And it's just one of the beauty
sharkpixel.com. Awesome. So make sure that you check that out. Sharkpixel.com.
That's the complete pack. The CP is the complete pack. But
awesome.
Yes, those actions are definitely in there. Okay, so I want to do the next section of our class today. So now we're not going to do actions. We're going to move on to custom brushes. And they can be incredibly powerful as well. So instead of going in to these eyes, for example, and going in and hand painting striations into the eye to create more detail and stuff like that, what you can do instead is you can use a custom brush. So since I have my brush activated here, I'm going to go up to my drop down, and you can see the regular brushes that you have by default installed into your Photoshop. And I'm going to scroll all the way down. And I'm going to come to my Shark Pixel Beauty Brush Sampler Kit, which is what you guys are going to download as part of that free download that I gave you. And so here are the brushes that you're going to get within that. We've got an iris brush. We also have lashes for the left eye, lashes for the right eye. You have a small clump lash, 2 small clump lashes if you need to fill in, and then lighter lashes too. Okay, so what we can do is with this, let's start with the iris. Seriously, you have to be so loud. Okay, all right. So whenever it comes to irises and that kind of thing, what I like to do is start with honestly, just an adjustment layer, and I set it to either screen or linear light, or linear dodge. I apologize, linear dodge. And then I invert this mask. So we'll change the mask of this hue saturation layer from white to black, Command or Control plus I. Now, since we have our brush, now this isn't a regular brush. There are a ton of striations in this brush. So I'm going to stamp it once here, just so you guys can see. Let me go ahead. So you guys see all of those striations that were created out of this brush? I tried to do it in the darkest area possible so that you guys could see it. So I'll make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to come and line it up with my iris here and just click once. All right. And now I can go ahead and use my lasso tool to just come along that lash line, make a selection of the area that I don't want visible. And then I'm going to choose Edit, Fill, and I'm going to fill this area with black and hit Command or Control D. And there we go. So we have this, these lovely striations that are obviously extremely aggressive. So we're going to be definitely darkening the opacity on this layer, but this is the power behind custom brushes, and how custom brushes can also significantly slash the amount of time that you spend retouching your images. So I have that set. I'm going to actually create another hue saturation layer and do the exact same thing with our second one, hue saturation. Now, you know what? I'll do it on the same layer. I love changing the way I do things in the middle of demos. Okay, so we're going to go back to our brush tool. We've got our iris here. Now, if for some reason you don't want exactly identical striations on the second eye, what you can do is up here at the top of your brush, you have this little thing that looks like a tilt. And so if you change that degree, it's actually going to tilt your brush. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to select this value up here. I'm going to hover my mouse somewhere in the middle of my screen, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and hit the up key. Do you see how the brush rotates? That's a good way to create variation in your brush, just by rotating it, you know, and kind of having it in a different place. Oops, that shouldn't have been.
So since the last version of Photoshop, you don't need to select it. You can just use the left and right arrow keys without it being selected. Yeah, so you don't.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to stamp once on this back iris. And again, just use my lasso tool to come around here, make sure that I get rid of all of that iris effect on the areas that I don't want it. Shift plus Delete will bring up your fill dialog box. Then you can press OK. Command or Control D to deselect. Now here's one big tip that I want to make sure that I stress. This eye is out of focus. This eye is in focus. That means any striations that I add to this, this iris here need to also be out of focus. So I'll go ahead and I'll just make a rough lasso around it. And then I'll come up to my filter menu. I'll choose blur, and I'll choose Gaussian blur, and we'll just do like a 1 radius blur onto that eye. That's what I call retouching within the constraints of the image. So it's important to make sure that you don't retouch with sharp edges on an area that's out of focus in your image, and vice versa. Okay, you really want to make sure that you take clues and hints from the underlying image as you retouch in the future. The next custom brush that I just want to point out is, instead of that iris brush, is going to be the lashes brush. And so what we can do for this is we can create a new layer. We'll come in, and I want to just, with my foreground color, I want to hold down and I want to sample along these lashes here to get a color. I never want to go with black, because you always want to go with a darker color that of the vicinity that you're working on. If you go with a very, very, very black, it's going to look unrealistic. Okay, it's going to look fake. And so now, all right, look at that. I didn't have to go up to the box and select it. Amazing. And I'm just changing. And then if you hold down shift, the same as before, you hold down shift, then you'll be able to tilt and rotate by larger integers. So we've got our, I love that. I'm so glad that they did that.
Yeah, so if you're using and we were talking about this earlier, right? What's the best version of Photoshop? Usually the newest one, and this is one of the new features, I believe, in Photoshop 2022, maybe 2021, but I'm pretty sure it was 2022, where you can rotate the brushes by using the arrow keys.
Yeah, yeah. If it came out in a previous version and I missed that, then I'm really late to the party. That's just all I'm gonna say. All right, so we can click once, and then there are all of our lashes that have been created for us.
Wow.
Okay, we can transform this layer by hitting Command or Control T, and then use our warp icon up here. We can activate our warp, and then we can come in here and rotate and basically align these lashes so that they really perfectly line up with the underlying eye.
Wow.
And they look like they were there. That is really cool.
And now, are these some of the brushes that are, we have a question, Baran Studio is asking, how do we get them? Are these some of the brushes that you have for free, or are these part of the pack?
This is what's in the starter pack that I am giving you guys away free.
In the sharppixel.com/thanks?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So the link
is on... They're not free. You have to post on social media about how much you love them. That's
right. That's right. There you go. So if you like them, you better make sure you go into Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever you want. Let people know where you got them from. But you will get them from sharppixel.com/thanks. So make sure you go ahead and do that now. Since we're taking this quick break, there's a few questions in the chat that I want to get to before we finish. We've gone over a few minutes, so sorry for keeping you, but I do want to get to these questions.
Sure.
First of all, thank you so much for all your tips. Let me see. So, Micah's saying your brushes are pretty cool. Did they delete the question? I saw a question here that I wanted to ask you, and I totally missed it. I think it was Micah, but he might have deleted it. I think there was a question on retouching lips, if you had any tips on that. Oh, here we go. Lips are always difficult. What do you recommend for seriously damaged, chapped lips?
Frequency separation.
Interesting.
Yeah. Frequency separation is going to change the color and allow you to adjust the texture on top. Just whenever you're making your sweet spot radius for the split between the texture and the color data, you want to make sure that all of that chapped texture data is on your high frequency or your texture layer. Whenever I'm teaching frequency separation, it's so revolutionary in allowing photographers to understand how to work easier in Photoshop, right? But the concept itself is hard to grasp. And so what I started telling people is the most important thing about frequency separation is where you put your radius. And so whatever that radius blurs out is going to end up on the high frequency layer, and whatever is left is going to end up on the color layer. So for example, if you're doing a polka dotted shirt that's wrinkled, and there's I'm not going to go into it in detail right now, but I have a great video on my YouTube where there's this shirt with polka dots, super wrinkled, and I use frequency separation.
It's a great video.
To suck out the polka dots from the shirt, put them on the texture layer, and then I use the mixer brush to literally iron out the wrinkles. But because the polka dots are on a different layer, then they're not being affected. They're not being adjusted in any way. So then you can turn those polka dots back on, and then the shirt looks ironed. So, and it's shocking how fast it actually goes. So,
and your YouTube channel is Shark Pixel, correct?
Correct, Shark Pixel.
Shark Pixel. Yeah. So make sure that you check that out, Shark Pixel, and make sure you also give Kristina a follow once you get there.
Yeah. So the last thing, I'm just going to duplicate this eyelash, Command or Control J to duplicate it. but yeah, so that's it. I do have a whole other thing on overlays, but I think we're going to have to save that for the next time that we chat together. But I will show you one of the, just really quickly, the way that overlays can really powerfully speed up your retouching, right? So we have this this image that I created. I used a bunch of actions. I did some foreground peek throughs of some flowers and stuff like that. Super cool. Yeah, this is my little daughter. We added some sun rays.
Wow.
And these are all items that are in my spring and summer overlay pack. So if I look in my libraries, there's over 900 items in there.
Wow.
And
can you show us on your website where to find those?
It's actually on the homepage of Shark Pixel right now. Okay. But if we look through, you can see peek throughs, for example. Here are a ton of different blur peek throughs. You know, for example, for this, I don't know what this is going to look like when I drag and drop it on, but we'll see. So here's a nice blurry peek through of some cherry blossoms that you can just quickly add into your image. I'm just going to delete that for the time being, but you can see how fast you can add texture to your image. And this is just a little bit of frequency separation. But then if I take all of these, because they are, let's see, I want to take all of those. I don't want to take dodge and burn. Don't want to take fern border. So I can take all of these overlays that I've added to this image. I can click, I can drag, I can hover to the next image and drop them all on there. And I can get the exact same effect on a completely different image.
That's awesome.
Sorry, my computer is taking a moment. But
no worries.
This is the third tip for saving time whenever you are working in Photoshop. Right. And so once they're there, all you have to do, because my computer's taking a lifetime, all you have to do is realign them. And then anytime you see that select subject command, which has been incorporated in, and you can see it like right there, you can see select subject right there. You just have to recalculate that select subject for the new file. But the amount of time that has been saved between, you know, toning one image, making sure it looks amazing, and then you can drag and drop and apply all of those layers to your next image is huge.
Yeah.
It's absolutely huge. So anyway, I know this looks like crap, but if we
no, but we get it. We get it. One question, so many amazing tips. Will there be anything that Christina didn't get a chance to touch on that she thinks is also important for photo editing? Maybe something she made on her YouTube channel. So any videos that you want to recommend on your YouTube channel, maybe you can do open up a browser and show us.
This is perfect. Yeah. So the what I didn't get a chance to explain today in this third step is I created a YouTube video for it, and it uses an image that I got that you can download, and I actually also include the downloads for the overlays in this. So you can actually go on here and download these overlays. So it's how to use overlays in Photoshop. And I give you the image free, and I also give you the overlays that I use in this file, in this video.
There you go.
Yeah, so there we go. So we didn't get to it today, but if you want to understand how to, you know, get...
Yep. So everybody watching, the YouTube channel is Shark Pixel. Make sure that you go and subscribe, and also make sure that you go and get the overlays and all the other freebies that Christina has for you at sharkpixel.com/thanks. And Christina, thank you so much. We've gone about 16 minutes over, so that's amazing that you spent the time answering all the questions, showing us all the different retouching techniques that you've learned over the years. It's amazing. AG in the comment is saying Christina needs an MSI computer. Maybe we can get MSI to get her one. I don't know. A lot of great
That's awesome.
comments. Wow, this is awesome, Christina. AG said that your daughter's beautiful, just like you. Very cool
Oh,
images.
thank
Great live
you.
tutorials. Do more. The blur overlays are amazing. So a lot of fantastic comments. So thank you so much for sharing all the wonderful things that you did with us today.
I
Everybody's
am so
appreciating it.
I'm so blessed to be here. I'm so happy to be here with you guys, and thank you, Jesus, for even making this a reality. I think it was amazingly kind and thoughtful of you to ask me to do this, and I'm just so happy. I'll come back anytime you want me.
Awesome. You're welcome, my friend. Of course, we love hanging out in person, and we get to hang out teaching you guys Photoshop. So it's equally amazing. And yeah, just more things coming through. Again, make sure that you check out Christina at Sharp Pixel on social media. Make sure that you download the overlays and all that cool stuff at sharppixel.com/things. And I know that she also has some stuff for sale at sharppixel.com/CP. A lot of fantastic products and training material over on Christina's website. So make sure that you check her out, and also stay so that you can stay in touch with her. Make sure you follow her on YouTube. She'll be releasing more Photoshop tutorials coming soon, I'm sure.
I will.
We'll talk to you guys soon, and see you later. Bye.